Welcome back. Don't forget, it's still Labor Day, May Day, and we're still keeping our eyes on celebrations across the country. We'll be bringing you update on how it is being marked in Abuja, the federal capital. But in the meantime, let's make progress as we look at, other aspects of national life. This time around, we're, looking at the planned introduction of the CBT, that's a computer-based test into the West African Examination Council exams for Nigerian students. And to help us on this conversation, we have the very man who should know himself, Dr. Amos Dangut, who is the head of National Office, West African Examination Council. He's right there in our Abuja studio. Good morning, sir. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much. I wish you a very good morning, too.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. So it's being celebrated, the CBT test has been celebrated as, eliminating what seems to be the big problem in our approach to conducting examination, and that is examination malpractice. And we've seen how it has, transformed results with the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board exam, JAM. But one would ask, why it has taken WAEC this long to introduce it into its own approach to testing students. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, help us understand the level of readiness in terms of provision of infrastructure, because this is a large-scale exam for students across Nigeria to sit for this exam as we prepare for it. How ready is WAEC with the infrastructure required?
All right, thank you very much. You have asked about 3 questions. I wish we take it sequentially. So let's start with why and how long it took us to come on board conducting a computer-based examination. And this examination, in our own case, is the West African Senior School Certificate Examination. You will have to consider the type of examination that we offer. We conduct an achievement assessment. That is to say, after 6 years of learning, you will have to now sit for the examination, which will assess all forms of your learning. So it is not just one aspect of it. For example, the other examining body, let me just mention JAM. JAM just measures in the multiple choice question, that is the OBJ. The objective type of questions are simple and easy to administer on the computer. Whereas if you really want to assess the achievement of a child, a candidate, you really have to assess other aspects. And that has to do with his practical proficiency. You will also need to measure his ability to write. So it goes into essay assessment of the essay part of the examination. So you have basically 3 components. You will measure his performance as in certain aspects, subjects like music. You will measure their oral proficiency, such as we have in Arabic and French. You will measure their practical application, the dexterity with which they carry out their task, and then you also have to administer the essay questions to really be able to find out how they are able to comprehend, evaluate, and synthesize effectively. So these are the reasons why it has taken us this long. And I must point out here that we have not yet come to a stage where we'll adapt the CB assessment 100%, because right now we have come to a stage where the objective questions are displayed on the screen and the answers are also provided on the computer. Whereas for the practical and the AC, the questions are displayed on the screen, whereas candidates are now given the answer booklets to supply their answers in. So that is it. So if we may move to your next question, how prepared are we for this examination? you will recall that WAEC started the private, the CBWAS for private candidate examinations. We have done it for the first series, the second series, and the federal government has seen the good aspect in it. I hope time will allow us to talk about it. And so they called all the examining bodies and directed. In fact, the federal government wanted us to continue, to do this forthcoming school candidate exam 2025 computer-based. But the infrastructure on ground and the level of preparedness was not good enough, and the infrastructure also. So we discussed with the ministry, and they graciously allowed that come November, December 2025, beginning with the private candidate second series, all examinations by all examining bodies will have to conduct the exam on the computer. However, for us in WAEC, because we already have some level of competence, we sought permission and obtained permission from the government to do a hybrid, so to say that some schools in this ongoing examination will do the traditional pen and paper mode, whereas a few schools that have the facilities will actually take the computer-based examination. So that is what is playing out on the field right now. Okay, so if I may get the third question you asked.
I know you deal with questions and answers a lot, so you're very methodical in answering those questions. And yes, it's very important to understand the process, because we'll have our young children and wards writing these exams in the coming months. So it's good to lay the cards on the table. But I want you to walk through the extent of the CBT for these exams yet again, just so nobody is confused on what to expect. Because you talked about the MCQ, JAM is basically multiple choice, so it's easy to do CBT. But for your examinations, it's beyond just multiple choice questions. You mentioned practical, you mentioned oral and the rest, even though we have in other climes oral examinations being administered via computer. But walk us through the scope. Which one would be CBT? Which one would be pen and paper? Let's be clear on what to expect.
All right, thank you very much. I must indicate here that the school candidate examination commenced the 24th of last month, April. So the exam is already on course. What we have right now, like I said, for schools that have not yet prepared the infrastructure for the exam, they are doing it using pen and paper. But for a few schools that already have the facilities, what they are having right now is that the objective questions are projected on the computer, and they also answer the questions on the computer. However, for other papers, the components of the subject, let me give the example of performance in music and in physical education. We will still have it being done either in the studio, as in the case of music, or on the field for physical education, where assessors are there physically to evaluate the performance. Now, for practical subjects, take for example physics, chemistry, biology, agric, and the rest. The questions will be beamed on the computer. However, the candidates will be given the answer booklets. The specimens and the equipment will be provided in the laboratory. So each candidate will have a set of these specimens and equipment to himself or herself. The questions will be read from the computer. The candidate carries out the assessment, the practical test, and then records the answers in the answer book that has been provided. Now, we are working, actually, in the very near future. We believe that the facility will be there, the technology will be there for candidates to even write the essay papers, the essay component, in the computer rather than using pen and paper. So that is where we are now.
So the whole idea for this now is about expanding the ability to be flexible with examining the students and also to fight examination malpractice. So maybe let's backtrack a bit. So what informed this innovation? How bad was the level of malpractice that the commission sought out to this direction to say, okay, if we involve CBT in these particular exams that we do, just like JAM does, we'll be able to curb this by a certain percentage. So I'm asking for data now, basically. How bad was the level of malpractice? And what do you foresee in terms of forecast that this will do to scale down? Because it sounds like a great idea, until it is properly implemented. I know you've done some, but it has room for improvement.
All right, thank you once again. I want to say in 2023, we recorded a malpractice rate of about 16% in the school candidate exam, whereas in last year, 2024 school candidate examination, the malpractice rate was about 11.6%. So you could say that there has been a gradual clamp down on examination malpractice. But that is as far as the school candidate exam is concerned. And for the private candidate examination, the first attempt that we had when we deployed technology to conduct the examination, we had the malpractice rate of about 0.8%. Now, I want to point out that that was a great feat, because internationally it is taken that a malpractice rate of 1% is tolerable, so to say is acceptable. And I also have to add to it that in the second deployment of technology to conduct the exam, in the private candidate exam that was conducted January 2024, the rate of malpractice dropped to about 0.4%. So from these figures, I want you to note that even in the pen and paper examination, WAEC has stepped up its fight against malpractice, such that we had a drop from 16% to about 12%. And in the computer-based examination, it dropped from about 0.8% to about 0.4%. So this is clearly an attestation to the fact that the use of technology in conduct of exam will be a great tool in combating examination malpractice.
I needed you to put that on record, because I was coming up with another question as to when you do all of this. Let's talk about the rural areas. We have concerns about broadband penetration. We have concerns about computer literacy. How is the commission managing persons who maybe are in the village, who are quite smart, perhaps in the villages who are writing this? Does it apply to villages as well? Who, just generally, how do you do it in rural areas who don't have the infrastructure that people have in the city centers?
All right. I would tell you that many studies have been carried out on computer literacy, including a study conducted by my humble self in 2018. That was a study to find the computer literacy skills of students in SS3. That study showed that students have computer literacy skills. And you also realize that computer is being taught even right from JSS level to SS level. So there is the computer literacy skill there. And you also agree with me that other examination body in Nigeria has also deployed it, and there has never been any problem with that. Now, in our own case also, in the first instance, we provide an opportunity for candidates to test themselves using the technology we are deploying. We usually do that a few days to the examination, and then in use of the technology itself, there are options there. So you have very easy ways of navigating through the questions. So that does not even require you to be a computer expert. Once you can use your phone, you can actually use it. So that is as much as that. Then coming to the infrastructure that will support the use of this technology. For example, the unsteady internet, the bandwidth you talked about, and some other infrastructure required. Like I said, we have conducted for private candidate examination. We didn't have problem except for on one instance when the infrastructure in Borno, Maiduguri, was down. So we quickly made an arrangement, and that took care of the situation. So we are also currently exploring other alternative methods of having network infrastructure. I also need to let us know that our examination is well secured. It is not virtual, it's not available online, so to say. And so because of that, there is no fear of hackers going in to disrupt our assessment process.
Well, there's a big concern about the rural areas where broadband penetration is concerned. And I wonder if your explanation covers sufficiently that concern, because there are areas in the hinterland where there's practically no network, and the concern also about the lack of computer proficiency of the students. So will there be sort of a mock conducted for them in partnership with centers in the cities, such that they can be prepared for these exams, and we don't record mass failure if they're not tested before the actual day of the exam?
Okay, like I earlier said, we provide the opportunity for candidates to test themselves on the environment. In fact, what we did was that you could either use your handset, or you could use the computer or the laptop to do it, because like I said, it's a very, very easy application, and it's adaptable for use by all, whether they are computer literate or not. We have done that even for this school candidate examination that is already on. For the schools that enrolled for the computer assessment, that opportunity was provided their candidates, wherein they logged in using any of the device that is available to them. Now, when you talk of penetration and availability in rural areas, I must point out that the private candidate examinations that we deployed this technology were in the urban centers. They were in the cities. So we didn't have problem with that. And even with the schools that are doing this computer-based exam for the school candidate exam, they have access to internet. Now, when the fear will then come when we deploy to all schools across the country. The federal government has come up with a plan that the examination should move from being a school-based examination to a center-based examination. And what that means is that the model, the platform, the pathway through which I will have to use this examination body again, through which JAM administers its examination, is the same infrastructure that we will also ride on. So you will also realize that in that method or in that system, there are designated examination centers scattered throughout Nigeria. So the infrastructure already exists. So these are the infrastructure that come 2026, we are also going to ride on. And I also need to say here that all examination bodies will deploy CBYs, and they will use the same infrastructure as has been agreed to by the federal government and all the examination bodies.
And by every standard, it's a major shift. And we hope that there'll be successes recorded in learning outcomes for the students following the successful experimentation of this approach to testing for proficiency and for achievement, as you have said. We've been talking with Dr. Amos Josiah Dangut, is the head of National Office, West African Examination Council, Nigeria. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Dangut.
Thank you very much. I'm excited for being with you.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Nigerians, too. All right.
And from here, we move to the softer side of things. We'll see a lot of colors as we explore the world of pointillism in art. Stay with us. We'll be right back.